Sanjana,
Present, Miss.
Larimsangi,
Present, Miss.
Larinsangi,
Present, Miss.
Anshal,
Present, ma'am.
David Lomsang Zwala,
Yes.
Lal Ompuyi,
Present, Miss.
Lal Sian Tuanga,
Present, Miss.
Lal Omkimi,
Present, Miss.
Rosang Diani,
Present, Miss.
Wasim,
Present, Miss.
Lal Thansanga,
Present, Miss.
H. Lal Sandama,
Present, Miss.
Lal Dan Chai,
Present, Miss.
Asmita, Shomak Ghosh,
Present, ma'am.
Pratik,
Present, ma'am.
Sinan,
Present, ma'am.
Srihita,
Present, ma'am.
Robert,
Present, ma'am.
Nari Dui,
Present, ma'am.
Atuile,
Present, ma'am.
Pradeep,
Present, ma'am.
Aditya.
Present, ma'am.
Okay, did I miss anyone?
Ma'am, Shreya.
Okay. Because I am using a new set of lists, so that's why I'm just okay. So I hope you have started with your tables. Like I said, you will not need to submit it. So like I mentioned in the last class, today you just a second. Did I miss anyone for the roll call?
Yes, Miss me.
Who?
Shreya.
Okay. Ichlal Ompuya.
No, Miss Shreya Kalambu.
No. Shreya, I already did. I already marked you. I'm
Yes.
calling out for Ichlal Ompuya. That's why there's one person missing. He is absent. Okay, Ichlal Ompuya is absent. Okay. Is the screen visible for everyone?
Yes, ma'am.
All right. So before we start with the design brief for the next project, and this is going to be your first kind of like a real design assignment. Okay, you will have to make a concept sheet, and I will show you a few examples of what a concept sheet looks like. These are not probably the ideal concept sheet. You can make a better concept sheet, or you can make your own style of concept sheet. But just to let you know how are concept sheets being made and what is the content of a concept sheet normally. And I'm going to show you a few pictures. These are not necessarily the pictures of from your seniors. Some I have taken from the internet, and you can find loads of images. I'm not asking you to copy them, but if you want it, you can Google it yourself to know what a concept sheet looks like and what all probably you're supposed to write on a concept sheet. Like the name suggests, the concept sheet will be the first sheet of your assignment, okay, for your presentation. So you will make a concept sheet, and this will be the starting point for your design ideas, your concept. So let's say now our project is going to be to design a restaurant. So what do I want my concept to be? Do I want it like a more traditional kind? Is my concept into the traditional kind, or is my concept into the modern kind, or is my concept more towards nature, so that I can imitate what is happening naturally, maybe around the surrounding in the site, or maybe next to the site, or maybe some inspiration. So this let's say this is one example of a concept sheet. The inspiration is modern architecture, and then she mixed it with traditional architecture. So modern architecture will have a certain form. It's more or less like straight lines and bold lines, or bold forms. But a traditional one will be more intricate, more details, all those things. So it came up to, after that, adding modern architecture and a bit of traditional architecture. You come up with the form, and then finally you have your built form. Your built form is your final product. Your concept need not always start with the form. Okay, it can also start with a word. Like let's say let's take a look at one example. We were designing a resort. We were supposed to design a resort, and what is my concept? I was watching a movie which is called Serendipity. Okay, serendipity is something, and then I look up in the dictionary. Serendipity is something like an adventure which is not planned, but like which is very, how do I say, like a happy adventure, like something more like happening by accident. But so the concept evolved from that particular word. Okay, so the entire thing, the entire design evolves around the thing that they have to, the pathway of that particular resort was not visible from one point, because they have to find some sort of happy places in that path. If you see everything which is laid in front of you, it might not be as adventurous as maybe a trail park, which you don't know where it would lead. And maybe at one point it will lead you to a nice viewpoint, which you might not have known. So you walk on the trail, you walk on the path along the resort, or maybe within the resort, or at the boundary of the resort. So in some places it will take you to a nice viewpoint. In some places it will take you near a pond. It will take you near a tree house, something like that. So when you follow that particular path, your adventure starts. Okay, your happy adventure starts. So it's like, although it is supposed to be by chance, and then you meet someone by chance. So that whole concept, the whole idea of the resort started with one word. All right, so it need not always be a form. It need not always be a layout. Okay, so in this particular concept form, they started with a form. Okay, in this particular concept sheet, they started with the form. The form evolves from both modern architecture as well as the traditional architecture. All right, so, and clubbing them together, they come up with their final form. And on the right hand side, when the form is completed, it could be the zoning first, and then after that the form. All right, so there is nothing which is like this should be the first step. You could start with a couch for your concept. Right, in a restaurant you might need some sort of a reception area where the receptionist will greet you, and then if you have a reservation maybe in the bigger cities, they will definitely have a reservation, and they will check out if the reservation is still, I mean, like if they have received your reservation and if they've reserved the table for you. So there will be an interaction, and you want that particular space to look like something. Maybe you start off with a table and the entire restaurant revolves around that table. Or you start with a kitchen, which is kind of a central part of a restaurant design. So you start off with the kitchen, you are very interested in cooking, you want to be a chef, maybe one day you want to open up your own restaurant, but you want a certain look of the kitchen. So your concept, your whole idea can start off with the particular kitchen also. So there is nothing like this is the first step which you have to follow. In this particular case, they start with the form and then come up to the zoning. Normally, maybe people will start off with the zoning and then later on they come to the form. Okay, so then the bubble diagram. A bubble diagram is very helpful, especially in designs like hospitals, hotels, or even restaurant for that matter, where you have lots of these kind of okay, so these kind of hospitality, kind of like a service building. So in a restaurant also, what do you want to do? You imagine yourself as the person coming to eat there, or you imagine yourself as a person who works there. As a person who works there, there might be different kinds of workers. There might be people who will clean. There might be people who will cook, who will make the food. There might be people who will do the loading and unloading. Loading and unloading is required because you will have to get supplies, you will need a good storage, and then you will need a good unloading and loading places. Then you might need to load and unload furnitures at one point also, all these things. And you might not want the customers to see the loading and unloading area, because these loading and unloading can take place any time of the day. It need not be just in the morning when you don't have any customers. It might be so that you ran out of some ice and then you wanted to order some ice, or you ran out of some chicken, you ordered some chicken or a bunch of chicken, and then they get it delivered. So you already started with your eating area, like the dining area, but you have food which is being delivered, or something else which is being delivered, or even water for that matter, or cooking gas. So all these things, you need to imagine yourself as these people. Even for the people who are from outside, who comes to deliver your required materials or your required goods. So how do you want them to move about? Okay, so this is where all the design starts in a way. For example, in the coming semesters, you will design a school, you will design a preschool, you will design a bungalow, you will design offices, all these things. In this also, I am clubbing many of the small required design projects which we are supposed to do, but since your semester is only about 2 months, we will not be able to have many design projects. Okay, normally you will design a small office, particularly probably for an architect, because you might be able to relate more. But we don't have that much time, so I am clubbing the requirements in this particular design, maybe to have a small back office or a staff area, so that at least you know how the manager's room or the manager's office will work. And then a small changing area for the staff, or maybe a resting place if you want to provide a small bed for maybe one of the worker, or maybe for the security person to sleep. That's up to you. All right, so bubble diagrams are all these things. I mean, like if you are a customer, what is the first point? You enter to the entrance, and then when you enter in the entrance, do you have a lobby where you wait? before you are being called to your table, or do you just enter directly to your table in many of the cases, which is happening in the smaller cities? So you enter straight to the dining area, and then you want to go and wash your hands after you sit down for a while. Where do I go? Where do I wash my hands? And then after I wait for my friends, I was sitting and then I was drinking coffee, I was having Coke, I was waiting for them before we order our food. Then I had to go to the restroom. So where is the restroom? So these bubble diagrams will lead you, I'll just enlarge, will lead you to the particular zones, the particular function areas. All right, so bubble diagrams could be for customers, bubble diagrams could be for staff, bubble diagrams could be for, like I said, people who are delivering. So all these things. And servicing area is separate for restaurants also. So this is one example of a concept sheet. Then this is another example. These are two examples. Maybe this is a bit of a higher semester's concept sheet because they mainly deal with the form high-end eco resort. Okay, so all hand sketches, drafting a bit, and then freehand sketches and a lot of text. So the way they compose the sheets also, you have to look. All right, so your concept sheet needs to look interesting, and on the right-hand side, they have this biophilic design as their concept. So the boundary of the sheet, the border of the sheet is also designed in such a way that maybe it matches the concept, it matches the theme of the entire design. So what do you mean by biophilic design? So they have a roof garden, they have a living wall, they have landscape area with stones or pebbles or all these things. So they take inspiration from nature. Biophilic designs are, more or less designs taken from nature. Maybe the house will have a shape of a leaf, or probably your walls will have the shape of the leaf, something like that. Or you might take inspiration from a tree, and then you want to have branches, you want to make tree houses, all these things. It could be as part of your concept. Okay, so, and then another thing is like here, they take the form from the harmonium, and in that design process, you don't literally have to build in the exact shape of your concept, of your idea, of your inspiration. You can just take the black and white part, okay, or you can just take the kind of the fan shape which is going on at the back side. So it need not have to be the entire thing, right? If you have some similar design concept. All right, so this is one example. The materials used, they have mentioned, and they have come up with the form, they have come up with the zoning, and in some places, materials, what kind of materials, and especially like in biophilic designs, if you take inspiration from nature, it's important to mention what kind of material you intend to use for your restaurants also. Okay, so here, yeah, another ideas. This is more like a square design, kind of like when I say a square, I mean a town square in that way. So you have your central roundabout where you have in 4 directions, different streets, different layouts. And then on the left-hand side, you have another kind of a basic shape where you have your rectangles and small rectangles, different sizes of rectangles clubbed together, all these things. Okay, here also you have your biophilic architecture, then your living wall, all these things. So this is how you make your concept sheet. All right, so this is expected of you. It's one of the requirement in the design. You have a concept, you can sketch it, you can use freehand sketches, and for your letterings also, you just need guidelines. You don't have to draft each and every letters, but use proper guidelines. In most of the examples which I have shown today, they have text, they have sketches, they have some sort of arrows, some sort of diagrams which goes here and there. But overall, the sheet composition, it's kind of easy to understand, especially if you look at this right hand side, the bottom one. You come from a larger map to a more focused map. In a way, they have circled, and then they have kind of detailed out the small streets. So whenever you are drawing something, maybe you draw a site map, maybe you draw a site plan. So you started from the bigger picture and then you narrow it down, you kind of zoom into the more detail. Then you can probably have blocks, detailed blocks after that. So it's easier to, and then the sequence, your eyes are following in a particular direction. Maybe you go from left to right or right to left. Okay, so your sequence is also important, not just maybe you have the plan in the middle and then suddenly you have on the top somewhere you have the detailed plan, and then somewhere on the bottom left corner you have some more detailed plan. So it's not hayway unless you kind of separate the plan. Let's say in this particular example, I have the street plan with this roundabout, which is happening at the top left corner of the sheet, right in the center, okay, right in the middle, where you have this detailed circular diagram, circular map. So I have the plan right in the center, and if I want to detail out 4 directions, maybe I can start with the top left, detailing out the top left corner of the plan, and then on the right hand side top corner I have from the plan the top right hand side corner. So something like that, a sequence, okay. And then on the 2 bottom side, on the left side and the right side, I have the detailed plan of the bottom map and the right map, something like that, if you have some sequence, unless you go from left to right or right to left. So your sheet composition, before you start, you have to first think of, if I sketch this, will it fit the rest of the sketches? All right, will it be making sense if I go from left to right or right to left, all these things. All right, so maybe you can have an arrow, so you have your concept form, modern architecture, and then traditional architecture. After that you have your subheadings of what modern architecture looks like, and then what traditional looks like, and then after that they club together, they build your final form. All right, so anyway, I think you can also come up with your own sets of sequence or sets of concept or sets of composition. All right, so this is just an introduction to what a concept sheet looks like. So we will, before I give you the brief, I will talk about briefly what are the design considerations when you are designing a restaurant. Okay, so it might be a lot of text. So like I mentioned earlier, you think like a guest, okay? And you must have been to many restaurants in your city, in your locality, with your friends or alone or with your family. So you might have a favorite restaurant. And it could be because of many reasons. You might like that place because of the ambience. You might like that place because of the interior. You might like that place because of the food. But these days, normally, I think we have gone beyond just the food. All right, so, I mean, like a roadside tea stall have an entirely different feeling than a fine dining restaurant. So in a normal tea stall, like a roadside tea stall, we have that freedom to chat away, to talk to friends, to scream, to laugh, and maybe even to smoke or all these things. You have that freedom, that liberty. So it carries the concept, kind of like in the second point, it says be true to your brand. When you say the brand, it does not have to be like what KFC, McDonald's, nothing like that. When I talk about the brand, it more or less talks about whether you have a fast food restaurant, whether you have a fine dining restaurant, or whether you have a normal kind of like a roadside restaurant, something like that. So your music, your ambience, the way you design, have a certain standard when you have that kind of brand. So if I ask you to design a fine dining restaurant, your ambience, the look of the restaurant changes. Okay, all of them are still restaurants. All of them are still places where you have food, but it might not be the same food. They might not serve you the same food. Let's forget about the menu. And it might be Chinese restaurant, Indian, Mexican, Spanish, continental, or local food. So all these are type of food, but what I am talking about is the way the restaurants work, whether it is the formal fine dining restaurant, whether it is the more casual, cozy, laid back kind of a cafe, or a lounge kind of a restaurant, or whether it is a fast food where normally you will not have you will not have very comfortable seats, because people don't intend to sit there for a long time. They are there to just have food. As the name suggests, it's a fast food, the type of food they are serving also. And the last part will be the tea stalls, the kind of food they serve. And then you might not have a food which needs to be prepared for a long time. And it's kind of like a fast food chain, but a more informal kind of. Okay, so be true to your brand. And then your storage. So the storage requirement differs, like they vary very much as the type of restaurants that you are designing. But in our design requirements, you're going to have storeroom for both wet storage as well as dry storage. What do you mean by wet storage? It's mostly dealing with meat or any of the thing which needs refrigerated. So when you have a deep freezer or a walk-in refrigerator, we will call that part as a wet storage. And a storage where you keep the dal, the rice, the pulses is the dry storage. Okay, in the wet storage, you might keep your vegetables because they need to be refrigerated. They might need to be kept at a certain degrees. Maybe some of your fruits could be in the wet storage as well as the dry storage. Some people want to keep their oranges cool and cold, so they will keep in the fridge. Some people might not want it very cold, so they will keep in. So some things can go in both the wet storage as well as the dry storage, but like your frozen food. So your patty for the burgers, all these things, your frozens will go on the wet storage, and the rest of them, like the other vegetables, like maybe potatoes, dal, rice, all these things will go in the dry storage. Okay, and the little things that matter, the ambience. Maybe people will come for the ambience. I know a place near MZU, near our university, where the food is not at all good. Okay, the food is not at all good. We keep complaining about the food, but since the ambience is good, and around that particular area there is not much restaurant where you can go and have lunch, we tend to end up in that place. All right, so maybe something like ease of access, all these things can also be one of the reasons that people will come. And then and finally, it's not just the visual. Like I said, we complain about the food in this restaurant. The hygiene could also be one problem. In this second para, what does your restaurant smell like when you first walk in? Although you cannot control all these things in the design aspect, but as a person who comes to clean, you can design your restaurant in such a way that it's easier to clean, it's easier to work for that person. All right, so as a designer, everything is kind of in your hands. You have to understand your power. When I talk about everything is in your hands, means you kind of have to lead all the customers exactly where you want them to go. Meaning the way you set out the table, the way you lay out the table, the way you lay out the passage. Okay, it's all in your hands. If you want them to first go through a series of aquarium, you will lead the path in such a way that they will go through all the aquariums, and then only after going through all the aquariums that they will come to their seating place. All right, your design can be in that way. Or if you want them to go through a lounge and then maybe have a small chit chat there, you can have your lounge at the front, and then after that they enter. So some things like that. If you want them to go through a waterfall, maybe you can have a small fountain there on the side. So as per your design, especially in bigger design projects like for hospitals, you can always segregate everyone. Let's say people will come there to buy medicines. So you don't want them to enter the hospital. So that means you will have to keep your pharmacy accessible from the outside. Okay, if you keep your pharmacy after the lobby, where they have to enter, everyone will enter. And even, you might even lose customers, because people will always have to enter, and especially these days, when you have to enter hospitals, you might have to get your rat test first. So they don't want to go through that to buy a medicine. So you might lose the marketing point a bit there. So where you place the pharmacy, and then you place the OPD, where you place the inpatient area, where you place the testing, where you place the labs, all things. So you can always segregate. This is one easy example which I'm just thinking at the top of my head. So the same thing applies for the restaurant. If you want the staff to enter a particular door, you can provide them, because they might come in shifts. They may not always enter at the same time. So you don't want to disturb customers. So you provide a separate for the staff. And you may have a back entrance for the service, which is a requirement, which is kind of a must. Okay, you must have, unless you are building a restaurant in a commercial area which is already very, very well established and packed, and you only have one side opening, which is the front. So let's say you have a series of shops lined up, and then one of the shop will want to convert into a restaurant, and then you have to design it. So you don't have a good passage which will lead you. You only have one opening. In that case, you cannot do much. But in this design, you have a side, you have an open side, you have one access to the road, you have one side of the side adjacent to the road. So you can take a road inside your side. It's not like just because you have one road in the front, you cannot have the road inside. You can take your service road inside. Maybe you can have your service entry at the back of the restaurant, at the side of the restaurant, something like that. All right, so you have to look at the bigger picture. All right, so yeah, we will come up to each and every space. So the first space when you think of a restaurant is the kitchen. All right, so please listen carefully. It should take up about 30 to 40% of your space of your restaurant. I'm not talking about the site. I'm talking about the size of your restaurant overall. And you might think it's almost half of the restaurant. It's almost 50% of the entire restaurant. And if you think it's way too much, then you can go to 30% or 40%. But if you have a very small kitchen and a very large dining area, okay, the proportion, it has to be proportionate. If you have a very small kitchen and if you have a very large dining area, let's say 15% of the restaurant, the area, I'm talking about the area of the restaurant, 15% is only the kitchen, and the rest maybe 85% or maybe 80% is the dining area, and 5% belongs to maybe the bathrooms or the washing area, something like that. So people will come in the 80%. Let's say everyone starts to sit, and then you only have 15% of the area for your kitchen. Imagine the condition of your chef. Unless you are a fast food area, a fast food restaurant where you already have food prepared and then you can just heat them up and then serve. In that condition, maybe your kitchen can become smaller. But if you have a normal kind of dining type of restaurant, then you need a large kitchen to cater for the number of people who are outside. So 80% and 50%, they don't work. I mean, like the proportion is kind of wrong, because you might have just one chef working in the 15%, and that person might not be able to cater the number of people who come in at a time. Okay, and the food will take very long time to prepare, and then after you open the restaurant for a month or so, people will say, oh no, I don't want to go in that restaurant because they take hours to prepare the food. Obviously they take hours because the kitchen is small. The kitchen is too small. The people inside there are also less, because not many people can fit in that small area. So lesser worker in the kitchen means bad service. All right, so that is why the kitchen is the ideal space which you have to, like the core space which you have to consider when you are designing a restaurant. All right, then the second thing, it might not be second so much, it might be the same as the first one. The importance is kind of, the level of importance is the same, because without your customers, you cannot run the restaurants. All right, so you can allocate about 40 to 60% of your space for your dining area, for your eating area. All right, so 40 to 60%. But remember, if you have 40% allocated for the kitchen and 60% for your dining area, you still need space for your bathrooms, your restrooms, your washing area, and maybe your storage. The storage can be clubbed with the kitchen area, your storeroom. So leave a certain amount of percentage for all these required area. Okay, so the second point is the dining area, and the third point is the washrooms. Especially when you have separate ladies and gents bathrooms, washrooms, your washrooms need not be the lavish ones which you might have at home. You might fit just the WC and a wash basin and maybe a mirror, but restaurants which have good washrooms are kind of, it's nice. It feels nice to enter a nice looking restaurant which have a nice looking restroom as well, washing area. All right, so maybe the dining area is very, very well decorated, but you enter the washroom, you enter the toilet. The toilet is very crammed up, it's very creepy, and it does not look nice, and that will kind of leave an impression on you. Like, you might not be very conscious about it at the beginning, but you will kind of remember that the bathroom is not as nice as the rest of the restaurant. Okay, so yeah, and the fourth point is the entry. Is the entrance welcoming? Is the entrance appealing? Is the entrance very attractive? So this is kind of the first point of what people will see. Okay, so you have to be careful with the kind of entrance that you have. All right, then yeah, so this is your design brief. Please I hope you can take a screenshot, because I might not send you separately. First, you will have an entrance area. where, like I said, you might have a receptionist or you might have the cash area club with your entrance area, your reception area, and then the kitchen. And the kitchen and the storeroom can be one area, in the sense within the storeroom you can have, within the kitchen you can have your storeroom, or you have a separate entrance altogether. But remember, restaurant is something that all the spaces needs to be defined, meaning a very much separated kitchen from the dining area, a separated storeroom from the kitchen, because you cannot store everything in the kitchen without a proper storeroom. You can definitely put deep freezers or maybe some racks in the kitchen so that you can have your wet area and your dry storeroom within the kitchen. That's also a possibility, but then it will become very messy afterwards. But it is also something that all the spaces cannot do without each other. They have to work with each other. Okay, you cannot have a restaurant where the kitchen is very far. In the sense, if the kitchen maybe is a separate structure and you have something in between, and then you have kind of a passage, and you have your dining area in a kind of a separate area. That is also a possibility, but the distance travel, remember, your waiter will have to take the food, and then while walking so much from the kitchen to the dining area, the food might get cold, and some people are very picky, and they complain a lot that the food is not up to the mark, and they stop coming, or they complain, they ask you to make the food again, or they ask you to heat the food because it's already cold. And also, if the traveling distance is so much for the server, the person who is serving, the person who is going around taking orders, picking up the food, then the service duration is longer. So this is one very important aspect which you also have to consider. The waiter. Okay, the waiter have to take the order, the waiter have to give the order to the chef, they will have to make it, and then after making it, they will have to pick up the food and serve. So a very well assigned table number, and maybe a place where they pass on the order. They write down the order, they place it on the table, maybe they pin it up on the board so that the chef will see. Or these days, they take the order maybe using some device, and then it will display in the kitchen. The chef will be able to see the display of the screen, and then after that, they will start to prepare the food, and maybe they will call you out, table number 1, the food is ready, and then the waiter will come and pick it up. So if you are using modern technology, that's also there. But remember, the person who is serving everything, the person who is taking the order or serving the food, the way they move around. And also the reason why I ask you to look at sizes of tables. Okay, different table size for 4-seater, 2-seater, 8-seaters. In some places, you might have a family area. People will come in larger group. Some people will just come into, and in some places, they provide like kind of a bar area where a person who just comes alone will just sit on the bar stool and eat his or her food. And yeah, if they come with one friend, they come up with 2 friends, they come up with a group of friends. So different table sizes is also required. Okay, and then although we didn't talk about how much gap should be provided, when you start to design it, you will understand it that the person has to sit. Okay, if you have a table one after the other, that means 2 chairs can move out at the same time. All right, the person on the next table, and the person, let's say the person on the left table and the person on the right table, they move out at the same time. Make sure that the chairs, they don't hit each other, and at the same time, maybe a person is walking So all three of them can collide, okay, if you don't provide enough space. All right, and at the same time, there is something called as optimum space utilization. Just because you have a space does not mean you can, provide maybe 10 feet apart table, like all tables are 10 feet apart. So you need not do that. Like, you can utilize the space as best as you can, and sometimes maybe you can have like some sort of cubicles, which in many restaurants that you have. Okay, so your dining area should be designed for 50 seating capacity. When it's 50, it will be a mixture of 4-seater, 6-seater, and 2-seaters. You need not consider 8-seaters. I repeat, 4-seater, 2-seater, and 6-seaters. All right, so they make up 50. It might not be exactly 50, it might be 52. It might 50 plus minus 2. All right, 52, 48, 49, but don't go lower than 48. When you are given a seating capacity, always try to maximize it. Don't try to minimize it, okay? Even if I say a plus minus 2 here and there, don't ever go for minus, okay? Always stick to the maximum part, okay? You try to maximize your seating capacity. And a small manager's office, the manager office will have a table, a chair, maybe a small rack where they keep the aprons, or maybe they store something there, or maybe they keep money also, so a safe, all these things, okay? They might need files, they might conduct interviews for the waiter, the waitress here, or the workers. So this person will need a visitor's chair as well. So we are not fixing the area for the manager's office. And then the staff room, the lounge area need not be very lavish, because they are not there to, lounge all the time. If you provide a very cozy staff room, they might just sneak out during working hours to lounge. So these areas are probably because for their changing, because they might come with, they might have a uniform. Your restaurant might have a uniform. They might not come wearing that uniform from home. They might need to change, and they might need to shower also at times, because the hygienic condition, like the requirement is not the same for everyone. So they might want to have a shower, they clean up, and then they change. Or after a long day in the kitchen, they might smell like fish, they might smell like food, so they want to clean up and then go out after that. Okay, they might want to meet their families, so they might have a bathroom. And restrooms are toilets, so you will have a separate restroom for both ladies and gents, separate restrooms. You might provide just the washing hands area if you want. I am not saying the number of restrooms. You might provide 2 for male, 2 for females. So try to work out the ratio, okay? You might need to have 1 urinal and 1 WC for the gents, and maybe 2 WC for the ladies, and a large area for washing area. They just want to wash their hands and maybe do a little bit of makeup touch up here and there. So restrooms. And then parking area needs to be provided for 10 2-wheelers and 5 4-wheelers. All right, 10 2-wheelers, 5 4-wheelers within your site. It could be a parking right at the front, it could be a parking somewhere at the side, or it could be a parking at the back of the restaurant. You have to park, maybe you provide a valet parking, they just enter, and then you have a valet, and then he will park it for you, and after that you ask the valet to pick it up, and then they will pick up the car and all these things. Right, then your loading and unloading area. So like I said, you can take the road in and let it enter the site. You can have a road which will enter the site, a separate service entrance. All right, so that is the brief. Before I show you the site plan, I will email the site plan to your class email ID after this. Do you have any questions regarding this? Regarding your assignment?
Yes, ma'am. Ma'am, in some of the hotels, there might be like not a big space, so they make multi-story buildings for hotels. So like restaurants. So like the first floor can be of the reception, and then the next floor can be seating areas, something like that. So how can we design? Like how can we make it into a project? Like how can we make an assignment? Like, do we have to make each of the floors separately?
You're not, see, this is a very small restaurant. Don't think of it as a part of a hotel. Okay? It's like a independent restaurant with only 50 seating capacity. And if you want a ground plus one structure where you have, it's like you have a ground floor, you have a first floor. That's also allowed. Okay, so if you want to have only ground floor structure where everything is at the same floor level, that's fine. But you need not go multiple floors. G+1 is more than enough because it's just for 50, and then it's not a very big site, and it's not a very big project as of now. All right, so you can go to a mezzanine floor. You can have a mezzanine floor. I hope you understand what a mezzanine floor is. You can have the dining, some part of the dining, and also your dining area need not be all under one roof, or it need not be all roofed dining area. It could be an open dining area. All right, so this is just a project for 50 seating capacity, and you need not go more than ground plus one, because when you go on a higher level, you have to put staircase. If you have a G+1, please make sure that your staircase is proper and it reaches to the height. Okay, let's say I have a ground plus one for my design, and I am showing only 10 steps. And my ground and my floor to floor height is 3000 mm. Please understand how to calculate the riser. If your floor height is 3000 mm and your step riser is 175 mm, just calculate how many steps do you require. Okay, so it's very simple. 3000 divided by 175 will give you the number of steps which you require. That means you require approximately 17 steps. All right, so if you show only 10 steps, and you have a floor height of 3000, that means one step is, the riser of one step is 300 mm, which is very high. All right, so this is kind of the advantage of having a first floor. You can have a smaller carpet area, meaning like you can have a smaller building, but you have 2 floors, but you have to work out the staircase properly. And if you don't have a multi-story structure, if you just have a ground structure, maybe your ground coverage is larger, but then everything can go smoothly. Like I said, if your kitchen is on a separate floor and if your dining area is on a separate floor, unless you have a dumb waiter, which is like a small lift which will take the food up to the next level, your waiter will always have to climb the steps. All right, so think of all these, and you can, there is no restriction. I'm not saying only have ground structure. I'm not saying you have to have ground plus one structure. It is up to you. All right, so you are still very, very free to think freely. The shape, the size, it all depends on you. As long as you have a minimum of 50 seating, you can go to the maximum, or you can go higher than that also. But you need to provide parking areas. You need to provide all these rooms. Okay.
Okay, thank you, ma'am.
Okay. Please take a screenshot, each of you, of your design brief so that you don't miss out. All right. So wait, I'll just show you. Yeah. The site. Anyway, I'm going to email you the site plan. This is the site. Okay, it's quite a large site. It is 20 meters, 20,000 mm, around 66 feet there. And on the side, it's 25 meters, and then one side is 18 meters, and you have a 5-meter wide road at the front. Okay, so don't worry too much. I'm going to send you the drawing of this one, this site plan, to your class email ID. And then you can just draft it from here. So you have to fit everything in this site. This is the boundary of the site. So let's say you have the entrance driveway. You have to think of the entry point. Okay, maybe you want to enter from the corner, the left corner, or you want to enter from the right corner, or you want the gate, the entrance to be right in the middle. That is also, anything is possible. It all depends on your design. Okay, and then you can have landscaping if you want, all these things. And don't worry, we will have a series of discussion. So for the next class, which is on Friday, you need to come up with a concept. Step by step we will do. You need to come up with a concept. You might not finalize your concept sheets. It's not required. You don't have to finalize your concept sheet, but you will come up with a series of sketches or a series of text or a series of drawings or pictures, anything, which will help you in your design. You will come up with a concept. Okay, Friday, definitely a concept, and then a rough plan. All right, so the plan, we will review it and we will keep on reviewing it, and then we will give you feedback. Let's say, no, your kitchen needs to be on this side, or if you shift your kitchen a bit towards the back, then your dining area will be open up, all these things. So depending on the the more work you have, the more we will be able to discuss it. All right, so let's say on Friday you only have your concept sheet. I will not be able to give you feedback on your plan, and then on the plan you will work during the weekend, and then next Monday I see your plan for the first time. Whereas your friends already come up with the concept sheet and a rough plan by Friday, and then we already give them feedback on the plan itself on Friday itself. Then they can work on the plan, they can improve upon the plan during the weekend, and then by next Monday, we might even finalize the plan, and they can work on their sections and elevations. So, and remember, you also need to make a model. You've already started with your workshop, and this is going to be your one project where you have to make the design model. All right, so you have just about 3 full weeks. Including today, you will have 3 weeks before we finalize your internal marking. We might have a time problem. A time problem is something, we will try to finish this project in 3 weeks, which is till the 28th of this month, to 8 of this month. And then I will give you, I will mark you for your internal markings, and we still have 1 week before your examination starts. Your exam is it will start from the 7th of February. Okay, please remember your exam will start from 7th Feb, and all your internal markings will be finalized before 1st of Feb. That means by 31st January, we will have to give you internal markings for all subjects. All right, that means most of the syllabus will be covered before 30th of Jan. so that we can give you marking by 31st Jan. And then we still have 1 week before your exam, and in that you might have a time problem. Okay, if we can finish this. So we have just about 3 weeks, including today, to finish this. And Friday, we will talk about the concept and the plan. And by next Monday, we will try to finalize the plan so that next weekend, like by next week, 21st, you will start to draw your sections and elevations. And after that, 24th Feb, we will have a final presentation for this assignment, and by 28th to 8, you can finish off with your model. Okay, so that means by the time your examination comes, you will finish most of the things. You don't have to make anything new. You don't have to draw anything new. You don't have to make a new model. You can just study for your theory. Okay, if you do properly all your design and all your kind of building construction, all your studio, these are studio subjects. Okay, these are studio subjects wherein most of the time you have to draft. If you do it properly, if you do it on time, you will not have any problem in your exam. You can just concentrate on studying for the theory. All right. Okay, anyway, I'll send the site plan. Please work on your concept, and your plan for the next class, which is on Friday. Okay, any questions?
Ma'am, what should be the size of the sheet on which we'll make this?
So, see, ideally, I would like for you to draft it on a normal cartridge sheet, which is A1 size. But many might not have A1 size sheets available in your area. But it will be better for you to make it in a sheet which is larger than A3 size. Okay. And if it is absolutely not possible for you to find a sheet which is larger than A3 size sketchbook, then you can go for A3 size. But I would suggest a sheet which is larger than A3 size. For people who are in Aizawl, you might be able to find papers in Synod Press, Synod Book Room. Okay, go for ivory sheets or cartridge. And there is one shop in Kulikon called CL Paper. They sell there, and it's cheaper also. But for the rest of you, yeah, because most of you are from places bigger than Aizawl, in a way that I hope you might be able to find out where you can get your supplies, where you can get your stationery items. Okay, for Aizawl people, you can buy it in the stationery shop near Hustler. It used to be there in opposite of Floria. That they also have, and most of your seniors buy it from Synod Book Room or Synod Press. Okay, ivory sheet or normal cartridge. So the rest of you who are from outside, you can, I'm sure that there are paper shops there, so you can go for a normal A1 size paper. It's better if you draw on larger sheet. And then for your final plan, you have to draft it. Okay, no freehand sketches or especially for the drawings. For the concept sheet, everything is welcome. Freehand sketches, everything is fine. Okay, for the concept. But for the plan, it has to be drafted. Okay, questions? All right, so if there are no more questions, yeah. It can be, because there are no restrictions for now. Okay, so, but that means you will have to work out the ramp. which will lead you to underground. Okay, so work out the ramp, the slope, the ratio of the slope, and will it be a two-way ramp, or do I have a separate entrance ramp and an exit ramp? All right, so yeah, it can be. Okay, so yeah, all right, then I will see you all on Friday. Okay, thank you, class.
Thank you, miss.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you,
Thank you,
ma'am.
miss.
Thank you, ma'am.